Hey, Kareem, can you hear me? All right. Can you hear me? Let's see here. Can you hear me? Kareem, you are on mute, so you may have to unmute yourself if you can hear me. Okay, can you hear me? Hold on.
Yes, I can
Okay.
hear you. Please, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay, we are live now, so I'll remove myself and you go ahead and get started, and I'll allow others in
I'm gonna
once they
wait.
join the stream.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait, see if Gail can join as well. But that's fine. We can get started.
We are live, President Jackson.
All right. So I want to thank all of you for coming on this evening and joining us. It is a critical vote. So this is part of our GOTV, which stands for Get Out the Vote. And we want to remind you that there is a critically important issue on the ballot tomorrow. It's actually the only initiative that is on the ballot, and it is concerning the Milage vote that we have been asked as constituents and voters of the city of Grand Rapids to vote on. It's a $305 million millage that's on the ballot. It's the only thing that is actually on the ballot. Hoping some other folks will come in and join me this evening. But simply, I wanted to get on and remind you tonight of the importance of getting out to vote tomorrow. And so when you think about this millage, and we have to understand if this millage is actually going to address the various issues that exist in the Grand Rapids public school system. So when it talks about proficiency levels, when it talks about academic achievement, when it talks about how is this millage going to address the issues with respect to retention in this district, with respect to making sure that our students are actually at the forefront of this. And so that really is the concern. I think there are a lot of issues still that have not been addressed. And we need to ask questions, because when it comes to voter registration and to get out to vote, we need to make sure we really understand what our power is, and that actually that students are at the forefront of the decision-making process. And so tomorrow on November the 7th, the polls will be open. And I just encourage people to get out to vote. It is critically important for us to get out to vote. And also, I want to underscore, to vote in our best interests. So that is the thing. I think we have Gail Harvey. Gail, are you here as well? So I think we're probably joining Gail Harvey in. She'll probably tap in as well. Gail is the second vice president of the NAACP Greater Grand Rapids branch. And so
Yes,
she'll
Gail
come
is on
in.
now. She's
So
on the
Gail
stream
is
now.
in. So Gail is in. One of the things that I will say that we had a community conversation with Dr. Roby, who is the superintendent of the Grand Rapids Public Schools system. I want to say it was October the 11th. And she talked about the $305 million bond that the district is trying to secure in this millage issue. And one of the things that that was really lifted up is the fact that there is no increase in taxes, but we have to be mindful of the fact that although there is not an increase in taxes, we still are paying for it. So we are paying, I think, 3.8 mils or whatever it is, with respect, which is a property tax mill. And so we still are paying out of pocket for this, even though there is no increase in the current millage, or I should say the current mills. And so, but we have to also ask ourselves, what is the benefit? So what is the benefit with respect to this new millage proposal and bond? And so one of the things that we asked, actually a couple of things that we asked, I'm looking at my notes from our community conversation that we took, is that one of the things we wanted to lift up is that Dr. Roby is clearly an educator, and she has a demonstrated knowledge of teaching and learning processes, and also possesses a knowledge of administering education programs. One of the other things is, however, we wanted to highlight is that Dr. Roby, and this was just from the conversation that happened after, from the individuals that attended that session, they felt like Dr. Roby dodged responding to certain critical questions, namely stakeholders, names of schools to be closed. And the group also, and I will say this too, who turned out to the community conversation was very well informed. Actually, they were very educated about the issues with respect to the bond, and brought out a number of questions. And the other thing is, Dr. Roby knows this was one of the questions that was lifted up, is which schools will close. So the comment that we got back, the feedback that we got, she knows what schools will close, but will not say, because it will be upsetting to specifically residents in the 49507 zip code. And so we wanted to ask, and the question was asked, how many schools are closing, or that you propose that will be closing? And I think we were told that night between 8 and 10 schools. And so the residents want to know what specifically that will entail with respect to the 8 to 10 schools that will be closing. So the other thing is what was lifted up that night, and I apologize because I'm reading from my notes from just the various feedback that we got. And one of the things that we got was that the presentation was for GRPS chief stakeholders, the GRPS board, and other GRPS power brokers, to sell the bond ideal to Black families in the Grand Rapids community. The presentation was a marketing campaign, and I'm reading from the feedback that we got, in an advertisement campaign. And so, again, I think that there are a lot of unanswered questions that the community has, and that we need to make sure that we have those questions answered before we go out to the polls tomorrow and to rally around voting for a $305 million millage. One of the things also, I think is what we got feedback from, and this is the direct quote. It was aimed to convince the Black community to accept the bond increase without GRPS being held accountable fully to the Black community. So the other thing is, so we're trying, this is just a direct comment, that we're trying to tell Black residents already paying for the $305 million bond support to support it without giving measurable results of the last 175 million bond is circumspect. And so those are the things that I think community has questions about. One of the things they had questions about was the graduation rates, and I think one of the statistics that was for discussed, we asked about what is the current graduation rate. It's 81.5% is what I think they indicated. Don't totally quote me on that, but still, if it's not 100%, that's not enough. We should expect more, and we should do more. The other thing, the other question is, what measurable improvements have occurred since the last bond, particularly for Black families and students? Are there measurable improvement items, those demanded by the GRPS community, schooling community? And so the other part of it was, what role does special education play in how the bond money will be financed and spent, and to address the historical inequity issue? And what role does English as a second language play in how the bond money will be spent? Again, in parentheses, historical inequity issues. And this is really critical. How can bond spending be used to increase Black student achievement in math, finance, business, science, and world languages? And so those are the things that, those are some of the questions that I think that are still necessary to be answered. And I think the community feels like those questions, those critical questions, have not been answered. And so I know we have Gail on here, my sister Gail Harvey, our second vice president of the NAACP Greater Grand Rapids branch. Gail, do you have anything to add? Can you hear us?
I can hear you all right. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for this meeting and giving the information to people and making sure that we all know what's going on when it comes to this, the voting, the millage, and the bond, everything. And so when I looked at what was sent over to us regarding these schools, it did not really give us the information that shows how they receive their information. So, for instance, they didn't let us know the data that they used to put the CSI strategy in place. They did not. We wanted to know what they were doing to increase the graduation rate for the 4, 5, and 6 years. They did not go into that. And we want to know how long have the schools been in CSI status. We didn't get that information. And what's the dropout rate? And how is infrastructure going to help with these concerns? And also, they need to identify which kids are underperforming culture-wise. So all of that is part of the questioning that we did when we were at the meeting at the NAACP building that night, along with who are the stakeholders. We have still not received any of those answers. So our concern is, with this millage, this bond, where is that going? What accountability are you showing us that you're going to do with this that will make a difference for our children?
That's good. That's good. And one of the other things, Gail, Madam Vice President, I would say is that one of the questions that we will have and we will share is what supports, when you talk about schools that are on the non-proficiency list and that are priority or whatever, because I think they're one and the same, what supports did these priority schools receive before they were named priority, right? That's critical, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So what supports were that, and I can't even see our comments. If people are coming in with comments, I'm sure they'll show up. But what supports did these priority schools or schools that were on the proficiency list receive before they were even named priority or non-proficient, right?
Exactly.
So that's a critical question that we need to ask. And then the other thing is, so how will this millage moving forward? Because we can't hold, I'll say this, we cannot hold her accountable, Dr. Roby accountable, or this administration accountable for what happened in the past. But what we can do is say, how are we going to move forward?
Exactly.
And so I think Dr. Roby has been here for 3 to 4 years. And so what supports were in place to provide the adequate consultation and tools and resources to these schools prior to them being on the priority list? And then the other question, I don't know if we have comments. I'm trying to see if we have. I cannot see.
I can't see any either.
Any comments or any folks that
Hey, President, no comments in the chat at this moment. I'm monitoring the comments, and I'll let you know as they come in.
Okay. And then the other question is when these schools were put on the priority list or non-proficient list, what support did they receive after being named and put on those lists, right? Because we know that there has to be some level of support in order to let's move these schools forward, right, Madam Vice President?
Absolutely.
And so that is the question that we have to ask.
Yes.
And it's a relevant question, right?
Right. And we have not been shown that. And quite frankly, we've been trying to engage for quite some time, trying to get information on these issues, but we have failed to receive adequate information. And as I mentioned, it's been a time frame. And when you're looking at the millage and something coming up that needs a vote, we need to know all the information that it entails.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's the other thing that I want to say too, is that your vote matters. So your vote matters. So it's been very quiet in the 2023 election cycle. And to me, it seems like folks are gearing up and waiting for 2024. But we have a number of key races across this country in 2023 that we have to talk about. And so it's been very, very, very quiet. And so it is critically important for us to get out tomorrow on November the 7th and vote. And to vote based on what we want to see, right? It's not just co-signing on some things. It's about voting on some things and holding individuals, organizations accountable to really what we want to see and what needs to happen. And so that is critically important. We're not going to take a position as the NAACP branch on the millage, but one of the things I will say is that it's important to ask questions, and it is important to make sure your vote counts. On the November 7th ballot for the city of Grand Rapids, the only thing that is on the ballot is the Grand Rapids Public Schools millage. And so it does not take a lot of time out of your day. You can go in there and you can vote and understand the impact that this will have on our city.
And let me just follow up with you on that, President Jackson. You are absolutely right. Everyone, it is critically important that you make your vote count. Please don't just stay home. Please don't just think it doesn't matter whether I vote or not. They're going to do what they want to do. Lots of people say lots of different things when it comes to voting. However, as I always say, there are changes in numbers. So when you show up in numbers and you let your voice be heard, it is echoed. So whether you vote yay or nay, whichever is yours, please do it with factual information,
Right.
understand what your vote means, and then cast it. Very important. This whole year coming is going to be crucial for voters. And if you don't think it's going to matter, just sit back and see what happens. We need to come out in droves. There are a lot of things at stake, including things that are going to be taken away as luxuries we have had and that we go through and that we worked hard to get past. So it's very, very important that you do exercise your right in voting. You can register same day. It's no problem to do that, and just bring your ID and you will absolutely be able to vote, cast your vote.
Right. And so one of the other things that we had asked the superintendent and her administrative staff is they had lifted up the fact that Ottawa Hills High School was supposedly on the list, the CSI list, or the list of schools that were priority based on graduation rates. And we have gotten some information that was inaccurate, and that they still have not confirmed that information, whether it was inaccurate or whether it was a mistake based on their failure to challenge that based on the appeals deadline, right? So again, this is not an indictment, but we need to be real. We need to be real, and we need to have the correct information, right? And so it's those sorts of things that the community deserves to actually have an answer on. Would you say that that's fair?
That's absolutely fair. If you ask the question, you should be able to expect an answer.
Right. And the thing that I want to say again, this is not personal, but this is about our kids. This is literally about our kids.
You know, these schools in these different neighborhoods, Ottawa, Alger, they're beautiful schools. They should be full. They're not full. But we don't want to run the risk of not having them at all for our children. So support needs to be there, and there need to be some sit downs or some meetings trying to figure out what's going to be necessary for that to happen. Because if we sit idly by, you could be looking at losing. And it's I mean, I was a graduate of Ottawa, so I go way back, and even before the Ottawa was up on Burton, when it was over on Iroquois,
Right.
the school was just amazing. It was beautiful. It was full of students. It was vital. So we need to figure out how to make that happen again, because we don't want to keep having our high schools and our higher level education spaces disappearing.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So again, it is critically important. This is all about getting out to vote, making sure that people understand the importance of getting out to vote, and that we honor our vote, right? That's the most important thing, because here's the deal, folks. We can't just be waiting for 2024. We got to be gearing up now.
Yes.
In local local and state elections impact our everyday quality of life, living standards. So we have to be vigilant in making sure that we are responsible and making sure that we pay attention to what's going on. Because I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of folks that will say we're going to slide things through that are not to our benefit. And so, and I'm not talking about this issue. I'm talking about just issues in general, right? Because I want to say this and be very clear as well. And I think I've said this, is that the NAACP has not taken a stance on this millage vote. But what we are taking a stance on is that you need to exercise your democratic right. And whatever you decide to do, that's on you. That is totally on you. Whatever whatever your vote is. And at the end of the day, we are going to continue to press forward. We're going to continue to advocate for the rights of these students and our community, and make sure that we maximize the impact that we see is necessary.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So control room, do we have any questions? Because I don't see any comments. I don't see any questions that are coming in.
Hey, you all. No questions currently. We still have several people who are watching the stream, but no questions or comments at this time.
How can I see who's watching? We're going to do some behind the scene production real quick.
So in the upper left corner, you should see where it says live, and then there's an eye. And so the eye shows you how many people are currently viewing the stream.
So in the upper left-hand corner.
You may have a different view than what I have, so I'm not sure
I
based
see.
on your view.
I see what you see. What you just said, Kareem. I see it on the top left in red.
On the top
Correct.
left in red.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that on the top left
Mm-hmm.
in red. Okay.
Like Kareem said, yours might have a different view because you are on your desktop, correct?
That is correct.
Yes. My view is this way because I'm on my iPhone.
Okay. So I'm going to try to change that. And anyway, so I just want to make sure people are coming in. I kind of like to know who's in the room.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter because I think we'll post this right as well. So we will have.
Yes, that is correct. This stream will live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And we did just get a high five from Miss Kwan.
Turn right onto 8 Mile Road.
Miss Kwan McEwen. She's reviewing the stream.
Okay. So yeah, I think I have a different view here, but that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging people who are taking time out of their schedules tonight to join us because this is critically important for us. One of the things that we say with respect to the NAACP is that take five to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
Take five to the polls. And that's critically important for us to do. In that I want to say that we have to make sure that we are voting in our best interest, period. We have
President Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Hey, sir, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're making a profound point, but we do have a question in the chat when you're ready. If you want to finish that thought, and then we can address the question in the chat.
Yeah, so we can address that.
All right, so Miss Sophia Ward Brewer asks, how does the tenure of Dr. Roby beginning just before the pandemic influence the performance data? So it's a two-part question. And then the second part is, what role did the pandemic influence the performance data? So essentially, same question. Just wondering, what are your thoughts around the timing of Dr. Roby's tenure starting right before the pandemic and how that may have an impact on some of our education data?
You know, that's a good question. Actually, I'm glad, Sophia, that you raised that up. So Dr. Roby, and again, this is not, I want to be clear, this is not about Dr. Roby. I want to be clear on that. This ain't personal. So we understand that she came in the middle of, actually at the beginning of COVID. So the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I believe she's been here about 4 years or so. Some of you want to correct that. That's fine. However, we have to understand the systematic issues in this district as well. And so she came in, she had 4 years to improve and to make some significant changes in this district. We don't have the luxury of playing with our kids. We don't have the luxury. We just do not have the luxury. And I think that she has been given a chance and an opportunity to show improve, right? And so the bigger question is, we had the millage that was passed, I believe I don't have the information in front of me, but 2015, about $175 million. And it was at about a 2.8 mil for property taxes. And now we're asking for a millage of $305 million in 2023. And so the question is, how is that going to improve proficiency in academic achievement?
Exactly.
Whether she's here or not, whether she's sitting in the seat or not. You know, we have had a reduction in about 6,000, 7,000 students from the district. We were at 1.21,000. We were at one point back in the day, 40,000. Now we're down to 14,000. And the other thing is this: whether the graduation rate is at 80% or 70% or whatever, that's still shameful. That's still shameful. And the fact of the matter is that you have a number of schools, including not just the regular urban schools or whatever, but theme schools that are on the non-proficiency list. So it's not just about giving her a chance. The important question is about, how are we showing up for our kids? Are we giving our kids a chance? Right? And so that's what it's really about, Madam President, Vice President.
I was just going to say, on to tack on to that is too, during that time frame you just mentioned was also COVID. So we'd want to know, because we already do know the data from COVID, that the children have been less, that the proficiency has been less through those years. The graduation level has been less through those years, but that's across the country, across the board. So in saying that, we would want to know, how did you differentiate those numbers from the actual data that you show our children losing during those years? Have you combined that, or did you separate them based on the proficiency of what's going on at the individual schools?
Correct. And so this is not a personal attack at all, but we have to ask the questions, right? Because it's about our kids. It literally is about our kids. And these young people, these youth and young leaders are going to be in a position to take care of us. And we have to demand better. We have to demand better. When you look at it from a statewide level, Michigan is in the top 10% of the worst performing schools in this country. Michigan. So we have to demand better. We have to demand better. And we have a right to ask the tough questions. It is not about the superintendent. What it comes down to, it is about our community, and it is about these families, and it is about our kids. That's what it's about. And I'm sorry, when you sign up for a specific job, you are expected to perform. You are expected to perform. That's what it's about. And that's what we're getting to. But again, I want to go back to our whole point tonight is to remind voters of the democratic process to get out to vote.
Absolutely.
I want to be very clear. We're not telling people how to vote. We're simply saying that you have an opportunity to engage in the democratic process to vote. Because again, local elections, state elections determine the everyday quality life of you. And so I am just encouraging people to get out to vote, but not only for them individually, but to take 5 and 10 people to the polls.
And know that the Rapid is giving free rides to those who are going to the polls to vote. Free rides to and from. So if you need to use the Rapid, hop on. There's no fee for you to go and vote.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Madam Vice President, because one of the things, if you want to call our office at 616-791-3478, or send us a message at info@naacpgr.com. That's info, NINFO at naacpgr.com. We can, if you need to verify your polling location, we can verify that. We can verify immediately whether or not what your current voting registration is. And then if you are running into any issues at the polls, we will be monitoring that throughout the day tomorrow, starting at 7 a.m. until the polls close. And so we have a litany of information that we can provide. If you have questions, please call us. Please call us to make sure that you have an unfettered access to the polls tomorrow. And the thing that I want to say also is that there's only one issue on this ballot, which is the Grand Rapids Public Schools millage. And we need to show up. I need for you to show up.
Please.
I need for everyone to show up and vote however you feel is necessary, because there's a lot at stake. There is a lot at stake. And sometimes we don't give the necessary attention to these local elections that is necessary. So I'm asking that you guys show up and vote for our youth and young leaders. That's what we need to do.
And just so you always remember, the local voting is what impacts you the most.
Exactly. And it only takes a minute. These are your kids. These are our kids. These are the individuals that will be taking care of us.
Yeah.
That will be providing the necessary services in the future for us. These are the individuals that will be taking my space, that will be taking our Madam Vice President's space, that will be taking our entire internal team space, organization space, all of these. These are the kids these are the young folks, the youth and young leaders that will be taking our space. And we need to take this very seriously.
And regardless of what it is that we all do, we have to keep in mind we are the village. It is our responsibility to teach and reach all of our youth. We have to maintain that.
Yes, exactly. And we can't afford we don't have the luxury. The stakes are too high. The stakes are too high to sit on the sideline. The stakes are too high. And so that's why I took it. I thought it was important. We didn't send this out. We just did. This is just a pop-up to remind people to get out to vote. We'll probably be doing something tomorrow as well. But this is just a reminder for people to understand the importance of elections across the board. There are so many across the board. And I want to encourage you all too. There are other elections that are happening in states across this city. If you have family members, if you have friends, to encourage them, to call them outside of the state of Michigan to get out to vote. To get out to vote.
Hey, sorry, President. Just wanted to jump in really quick. Looks like we may have lost Miss Harvey, President Harvey, but hopefully she'll rejoin. We do have another question in the chat from Miss Sophia Ward Brewer. Whether the millage passes or not, do you all know of any organized community plan to hold the schools accountable?
That's a great question.
Awesome.
And that's an awesome question. And we will have an organized plan to moving forward to hold not only the Grand Rapids Public School District accountable, that has embedded in that plan key performance indicators, but also Wyoming, Kentwood, all of the other districts, because sometimes we get focused on Grand Rapids Public Schools, Grand Rapids Police Department, but there are the same issues that are happening in outlining areas. So absolutely, we will have a plan to hold these schools accountable. And actually, we've been working on that already. And so we will be making that public as well.
And please know, when we send you all out the information, the days, the times, we need you to show up. Your voices are encouraged. We need to hear from you during those meetings as well.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the things, I'm glad you said that, Madam Vice President, one of the things is this has to be a community directed plan.
Yes.
We can't sit back and as an NAACP or any other organization and say, this is what the community wants. No, that's not how it works. We have to hear on the ground level what community. It has to be community centered and community focused.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. And that's what we will be doing.
Yes.
So I don't see any more questions, but one of the things is that I will say is, again, ask questions, encourage people to get out to vote tomorrow. Take 5 people with you, call 5 people, 5 of your friends, and encourage them to get out to vote and to show up. There's only one thing with respect to the city of Grand Rapids ballot, but encourage them. I encourage you to encourage people to get out to vote and to ask those tough questions and not be afraid of these things. One of the things that this current millage, the 2023 moving forward, addresses, and this is from the superintendent, Dr. Roby, is security. So that's one of the things that this millage is supposed to address. And so before I came on this live, I'm not sure if those individuals who are watching or who will watch this later is aware that there was a significant incident that happened today at Ottawa Hills High School. A significant violence issue. And so that is one of the things that we need to make sure that when you talk about a plan to hold the school district accountable, we have to address security and violence at these schools. Because I don't care who you are, you should not have to, no student should have to attend a public school, private school, parochial school, and feel that they are not safe. So that is an issue of violence that has to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed immediately. Immediately. Absolutely immediately.
And let me add to that, President Jackson, that when you make these decisions, it's very important to take that into account as to if you are able to step in and take care of things and continue things and make sure our children are safe. Do you have that experience and know how? Because that's vital, especially in our communities.
The other thing is this. It goes both ways, right, Madam President?
Yes,
It
yes, sir.
goes both ways.
Yes, sir.
So one of the things is this. It takes some intentional, so we can hold the school district, the administrators accountable all that we want to. But we have to hold the parents responsible as well.
As well.
That's real talk.
Yep.
We have to hold the parents accountable as well, because that's your baby. You had that baby. And so we have to also say that there is a responsibility. And I already know, and I will say this, is that parents are working 2 or 3 jobs and that sort of thing. But that is some of the things that, from a partnership level, community-based organizations can help with. To how do we provide wraparound services? I'm using my hand gestures to make sure that parents have the necessary resources and tools to make sure that their young people are successful.
Yeah.
That they're successful. Because it takes everybody. This is not one-sided. It takes all of us to do that. And I want to say that loud and clear. It takes all of us to make sure that this is a wraparound opportunity, that we engage parents, that we make sure that they have the necessary tools, that they have the necessary resources that they need in order to make sure that our kids are successful. Again, this is not an indictment at all, because I'm not a one to blame the victim, but I am one to talk about an observation. And so we have to make sure that we have all pieces of the puzzle in place. So I just want to say that, and I say that respectfully. I say that respectfully. And so it takes all of us to do the work.
That's true, Mr. President. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we had something in the chat, did we?
Yeah, so I actually just added something in the chat. And so there's an African proverb, and I think it was relevant to some of the points that you all raised. And the proverb states that the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And so as you talk about the current landscape as it relates to our youth and the lack of resources and lack of support at home and at school, I think this proverb speaks directly to that, and with the result of that lack of love and the impact that can have on our community as a whole. So that's something that stood out to me some time back. I heard that Cole Williams of the Delta Project is one to use that quote, and so I felt it was really relevant to share and add to the conversation.
It's definitely relevant and powerful, and it takes the village, and you have to take in account for our children and what they're feeling and what they're going through, because it's a different time for them as well. And especially when they went through COVID. I mean, you had high school kids, no prom, no sports. They've been playing all the way up to their senior years. And then when they graduate, they weren't able to do it together. They had to do it in separate. So you have to take account their mentals and what's going on with them, as far as keeping them engaged and letting them know we care about their future and that we're going to fight for them. Because if we don't fight for them, who's going to fight for them?
Yep,
It
that's
is parent as well. You're absolutely right, Mr. President. We got to step up with, we need to be there for them.
That's right. So I want to say thank you all for participating this evening, and get out to vote November the 7th.
Get out the vote.
It's important.
Thank you all. And with that said, we'll conclude the stream and we'll see you all soon.
Thank
Thank
you.